Welcome to Lesson 12 of East Main 101. I am your facilitator, Kenneth Cummings, Communications Director for the City of Jackson, Tennessee. And for today's lesson, we have the Director of the City's Planning, Growth, and Development Department, Stan Pilant. Stan, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Kenny.
Real quick, there's one thing that I always use when I talk about when I join communications with the City of Jackson. I always use your name. So when I say, when I was with the Jackson Sun back when I worked there, we could always go just straight to a department. And I always use you as an example because I remember doing an interview with you and Tyler Whetstone, and we came to see you. So I always pick, when I used to work for the Sun, we could just go straight to City Hall. I'll use, for example, Stan Pilant. We could just go straight to him and interview. So I'm glad to have you on.
Thank you.
To talk about planning here in the City of Jackson. So, as we all know, we're going to read a quick bio of Stan. Stan Pilant was born in Coronado, California on September 11, 1963, while his father was stationed at a naval base in San Diego, California. At the age of 3, he and his family returned to their hometown of Brownsville, Tennessee. He attended city schools in Brownsville and graduated from Haywood High School in 1981. He received a Bachelor of Science degree from Union University in 1986, majoring in social science. He also received a teaching certificate in secondary education. Upon graduating, he attended the University of Tennessee Graduate School of Planning in Knoxville, Tennessee. He completed all coursework toward a Master of Science in Planning in the spring of 1988. In May of 1989, Stan came to work for the City of Jackson as the Transportation Planning Coordinator. In 1992, he was promoted to Senior Planner. And in 1995, he was promoted to Principal Planner. Then Stan became the Director of Planning in October of 1996 and continues to serve as the Director of Planning and directs a staff of 8 in carrying out the daily planning activities for Jackson and Madison County. In August 2023, Stan was promoted to the Director of Planning, Growth, and Development. In his new role, he now oversees the Building Department, Engineering Department, and Planning Department. Stan is a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, the American Planning Association, and the Tennessee section of the American Planning Association, and the Urban Land Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Stan Pilant, Director of Planning, Growth, and Development for the City of Jackson. Stan,
What's up?
I'm excited to talk to you and to just kind of give more information to our residents of how it all works when it comes to building structures in the City of Jackson. So we'll just, first of all, start off. Your bio mentioned that you got a certificate in secondary education. Where did your spark for teaching where did it come from?
Well, I always enjoyed teaching in different capacities. I mean, in Sunday school and in adult class at church or whatever. I always enjoyed the interaction between student and teacher, presenting information, informing people of different things, and just engaging with dialogue and hearing people's perspectives, and that always interested me. So I had a best friend in college and his wife-to-be, who became his wife. We were all in education, so my goal was to teach in high school or to teach in middle school, 7th, 8th graders. And so I went through that, and toward the end of our education at Union, you do what your student teaching, and I did that in Haywood County schools. And we got toward the end of our education before we were to graduate, and they gave us a sheet, and the sheet basically outlined the salaries for teachers. And it said that a teacher with a PhD and 20 years in the system would top out at $26,000. And at the time I thought, I've got friends in industry that are making more than that now. And so I thought, I don't know that I could support a family on that. And this was before Career Ladder and all the changes. And of course, I still think teachers are underpaid for what they do. And the ones that are doing it do it because they love it. And I love doing it, but I thought it's going to be hard for me to support a family on that. So I started looking for other opportunities, and I was walking down the hall in the political science, history type department where I had a lot of my classes, and I saw a bulletin board that had the School of City Planning at University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and I thought that might be interesting. So I got in touch with the school and found out that the director was a former resident of Jackson, so they grew up here, and so we got to talking, and I decided that's what I would do. And then when I got into it, I really enjoyed all those aspects of planning.
So there was no prerequisite of planning. You just saw a flyer on a bulletin board, said that might be cool. Before you got into that area, what caught what on that bulletin board? What about it that caught your eye, or what was it in your mind? It was like, you said it would be cool. City planning. Did you have an idea of what it was, or what?
Well, I had some ideas, and being in political science and some of the history classes that I had, I got introduced to some of the urban planning type things. But for the most part, it just seemed like a career that would be exciting, to be able to be involved in a city's growth, to be able to shape that growth and to see what comes out of those projects. And so as I got into it, and I went to the school, and I got there in the fall, and got to be introduced to all the planning aspects and the history and the theory behind city planning, I got more and more enthused about the choice I made. I don't believe anything's coincidental.
Right.
I believe that we all have a plan that God lays out for us, and sometimes we take twists and turns to get to where He wants to be. But I think He does lead us and open doors and close doors. So I felt like that was sort of His way of getting me into an area that I could grow and also have influence. So that was kind of the path I took.
So no background, even in teaching, there was no background in planning, like city planning.
No, planning was one of those fields that it used a lot of undergraduate degrees, and it wasn't like engineering where you have undergraduate engineering requirements. It sort of takes people from a lot of different areas, because planning's so diverse. You have environmental planning and transportation and historic and all those things. And so it was one of those fields that you really didn't have to have a specific undergraduate. Of course, my degree was in social science, so I had all the social science part of like political science, history, geography, all those things that make up parts of planning. So I think I had a basis for that, but I really didn't get into it because it's a master's level degree, so you really don't get into the nuts and bolts until you get into the master level.
So if you had not walked down that hallway and saw that bulletin board flyer, do you think you would have still gone out for the teaching thing or something else?
I think I would have chosen something else. Not that I didn't enjoy teaching, but again, teaching at that time, it was grossly underpaid, and it was also your hands were tied in a lot of ways that you couldn't really teach the way you wanted to. You might the kids that you were dealing with were on so many different levels, and some they were bored, and some were just trying to catch up, and so you spent a lot of time not really teaching but trying to manage, and that, to me, that wasn't the joy of teaching, is having the light bulb going on in someone's head when you're giving them a concept that they understand and they can apply. So unfortunately, teaching at that time, there wasn't a whole lot of that. There was more management and classroom management, and that was the part that I didn't enjoy as much. So
and you said with a PhD at that time, 1986,
yes,
topped out 20,000.
Well, yeah, in 81 when I graduated in 86. Yes, in 86, the salaries were 26,000 top out.
I cannot imagine.
And
maybe at that time, to me,
it was even on the low side then.
Okay.
I mean, then of course incomes were lower, but but that was someone that had spent a career, and someone that had invested in education to get to the doctorate level, and they were still in the 20s. And so that was, again, my decision wasn't all motivated by money. Of course, money helps, but it was that coupled with the fact that you didn't really get to teach as much, the things that you really enjoyed about teaching weren't as much present as the management of classes.
So you were more so managing students versus giving them life lessons of what subject did you have in mind?
It was science. And basically mostly science, but there were some others too.
Yeah, so you were more managing students. I mean, I think they're still doing that a little bit now, making sure the kids are not rowdy in class and missing out on the however many minutes, 45 minutes, 55 minutes. 20 of those minutes might be kids, y'all sit down, students, y'all sit down, versus the teaching part. So, like I said, money wasn't the major thing that made you change, but just I guess you had a love for wanting to do the teaching part.
I did, and I'll give you an example. When we were in education classes, they said, now be prepared when you get into the classroom. You're going to spend most of your time shooting toward the 70% of the bell curve. In other words, shooting at the middle. So the kids that are truly gifted, you can't concentrate on them,
right?
Because they need more individualized. And they had programs for that came later when my daughters came through school. When they got into IEPs and things like that. But then, so what you did is you shot toward the middle. You couldn't help the ones that were struggling, and you couldn't really challenge the ones that were gifted and really were bored by where you were. So that was the disheartening part of it. Is okay. So you're telling me 30% just get left behind, basically, and that was disheartening to me, because I wanted to be able to help all of them reach that point where the light bulb goes on.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the motivation too. But as time progressed, education, they started addressing some of those things, but some of the inherent issues with teaching classrooms are still there today, and it's those create difficulties for teachers.
Well, your bio, you have 5 specific years where your title has changed. In May of '89, Transportation Planning Coordinator. 1992, Senior Planner. 95, Principal Planner. Then Director of Planner in '96, and then the Director of the entire department, Growth and Development, Planning, Growth and Development in 2023. So you start off Transportation Planning Coordinator. Talk about all 1, 2, 3, the first 4, I guess, or the first 3, because we know Director of Planning, you kind of lead the entire department. But starting off, of course, you didn't come in as a director. No. So talk about those 3 in a nutshell: Transportation Planning, Senior Planner, and Principal. What do you do? What do you do?
Well, I'll start by saying that I had interviewed with the city in '88, and spring of '88, and the city, the interview went well. I thought I had the job.
And at the time, of course, the city was a lot smaller than what it is now.
Yes.
Okay.
And so in '88, this was before the change in government, and so I came in '88, and I was pretty much told that I had the job, and so I was getting prepared for the move back here and all of that, and so a month and a half went by, and I didn't hear anything. So I called and I said, anything on the job yet? And they said, well, we had to go with someone else. And I said, okay. And so at that time I thought, well, I've got to make a living. So I started, working in jobs that I could find, and worked for an industry there in Brownsville for a little while. And then in about April, 1st of May, out of the blue, they called me again and said, well, one of the guys that we hired was driving back and forth to Memphis and decided they didn't want to do that anymore. Would you be interested? And that was the transportation planning position. And so again, I don't think anything happens by coincidence. They just said, well, we just happened to find your name on a phone note from when we interviewed you back in '88, and I just wondered if you were still looking for a job. And so again, I felt like, that was my door, and so I started with the city, and I started out in transportation planning, and at that time, there was 2 PCs in all of city government.
And PCs,
planning personal computers.
Okay. Oh.
Remember
computers.
This
This is 89. Yes.
So there was 2 personal computers in all of the city government, and one of them was in planning. Well, I had in graduate school, one of the things that I got to do is I got to work in the computer lab and kind of a graduate assistant in the computer lab. So I got introduced to personal computers, because at that time mostly everything was mainframes, and there wasn't that many of them, and they were just coming into vogue. So I learned a lot in working the computer lab, just working with students. And so when I came to the city, one of the side jobs I had was supporting personal computers in the city government, because there was only 2, and then we gained a few more after that. But
so you kind of had a little bit of IT in you as well.
I did, and I've always enjoyed them, and I built them and different things. But that's the geeky side of me.
And this was back when they were huge, not little.
Well, I've got one in my office that I bought it years ago. I wanted one like the one I had when I started with the city, and it's called a portable computer, but it weighs about 50 pounds and got a handle on it about the size of a suitcase, but it has a screen built into it and all of that. But so when I first came in as a transportation planner, I bought the second computer in our department, and at that time it was like $7,000, which was crazy. But I remember it was all the computer that we thought we'd ever want. It was like a 386, and it had like I forget it, like 512 megabytes of or something of memory. It was like today you couldn't even your phone's got more memory on it than that does. But it was in the early days, and so we started doing CAD. AutoCAD drawings, computer assisted drawing, doing mapping and different things. And so then I just, what I've always done in my career is I've never said, okay, this is all I do. If somebody was in the middle of a project, I would be right there trying to learn what they were doing, or asking if I could help, because the more I was involved in, the more things I learned. And that's why even today I have a knowledge of a lot of things that transpired over the city's history, because I didn't limit myself to, okay, I'm just a planner, that's all I do. If it was a special project, it was something else, or it needed help, or I would find a way to be a part, or at least know something about it, so that I could help, or so that I would just have a knowledge of that. And so, then I became the senior planner, which got some other responsibilities. I started working with the planning commission, and the principal planner, started taking on more. And then the planning director, who was planning director when I was hired in '89, left in '96, and so I was appointed interim. And Charles Farmer was the mayor at that time, and he gave me an opportunity to be the interim planning director, and then they appointed me as the permanent planning director that next fiscal year. And I really appreciated that in that he gave me an opportunity, because I was a young person with just a few years of experience, but I tried to gain all the knowledge I could, and I felt like that I could do what he needed me to do, and so that kind of led into that, and then that's where I remained for a lot of years. And of course our jobs and duties changed, because planning's so diverse and we do so many different things. I've helped in reapportionment when we have to redraw the districts. I remember helping John D. Graham at the time when they were doing school zones and counting pupils by hand and all the things. So we've done a lot of things over time, and it's been interesting.
So of course, over 30 years, you know what planning is. I don't. My wife, when she plans, she writes things in her calendar for, I've got to do this on that day. I don't do that as much. If there's anything, she'll put it in the calendar and we both share it. Well,
there can only be one person flying by the seat of their pants in any organization.
And I'm that guy. And if there's, hey, can you put this in the calendar so I can remember it? So that's the planning that I know. You, as a city planner, what is city planning? And what is it? I mean, you think about, like I said, my wife, she plans the day, she plans the week. You plan the city. What does your job, or as a planner from beginning to now, what does your job entail? What do you do as a planner?
Well, I have an opportunity every year to speak to Leadership Jackson, and that's one of the topics that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I tell them that everybody's a planner, just like you said. We all have things that we plan in our life, but the key to planning is the main root of that word is plan. Right. So you first have to have a plan. And say you want to go on a trip, the first step is to decide where you want to go. And the next thing that you try to decide is how you're going to get there. Mm-hmm. And then after you determine that, then you have to determine, okay, what resources have I got that will help me get there, and that will determine kind of the path that I take to get there. And then once I get there, what are the things I want to do in addition to once I've arrived at that destination? And then, then you're always looking forward. Planning is always forward-looking. We're always looking 20 years in the future because you can't plan in the moment. Sometimes you have to react, but reaction's not planning.
Right.
Reacting is just making a decision in a very brief moment over something you didn't have time to plan for.
Like for me, when I work for the Sun, we could plan ahead. Oh, we know this is coming up. We know this is coming up. But we get a phone call. Hey, there's a fire. You got to react to it.
You do. You have to react, and those situations always come about. But we're not always the best equipped or make the best decisions when we're reacting because we don't have time to sit down and look at everything. My wife, whenever we're going to go somewhere, she researches it to the hilt. She wants to look. She wants to know where things are. She wants to see what restaurants are around where we're going to be.
That's me.
She wants to look at the menus. She wants to see what kind of food I mean, she looks at all that, and that's really that's nothing different than what we do with cities. It's just we're doing it on a much larger scale. But ultimately, our plan determines where we want to go, and so we have a civic master plan that we just recently updated. And that civic master plan says, Jackson is these things, and this is where we want to be in the future. And so one of the things we do is we lay out the steps that are going to get us there. And then we make an effort to make decisions that help us get there. But, in doing that, it's all important that we always keep those goals in mind. We just went through budget cycle, and budgets are, when we're going through budgets, it's always a difficult process because you got a lot of needs, but you usually don't have the resources to meet them all. You try your best, and so you have to prioritize, and you have to look at things that are important. But as we went through that, one of the things that you always need to have in the back of your mind when you're making budgetary decisions is, how is this furthering the goals that we've set for the Jackson? Because there will always be things that will displace where you want to go. So if you let them, they will push it to the side, and before you know it, those goals that you had may be on the back burner because you've put other things in front of it. Now, sometimes there's a reason because things get in front of where you were trying to get. Conditions may change,
And some of those things that you react to might make the detour. You react to something, okay, we have to make a change. We have to put something, a building that we're planning for burns down. We have to now change the route.
It does. I mean, and I've worked for the tornadoes that we've had in Jackson. And so natural disasters always change your direction. I know after the 2003 tornado, which was a major F4 that destroyed a lot of downtown and a lot of East Jackson, and so that changed our direction because it became now about rebuilding, not so much building but rebuilding, and so that became all of our energies were now based around how do we get back what we lost, And so there will always be things, economic trends, big employers that come in that you have to kind of change your infrastructure to meet those demands. There's always things that may change your direction, but there's always these fundamental goals that you must keep in front of you and weigh your budgetary decisions on. Is that furthering those goals and objectives? Because if you don't keep that in front of you, then it'll always get pushed back. And so that's why planning is always in 5-year increments. Okay. You're looking 20 years out, that's the goal, but you revisit it every 5 years and you go, okay, where are we now? Because conditions change. Mm-hmm. That goal that you put out there at 20 years may change. The population growth may send you in another direction, or a blue oval may change.
They're not even in the city,
but they're affecting.
They're affecting, right?
So now, our emphasis is a lot in housing, trying to get housing for people that are going to move here for Blue Oval and need a place, or support industries that move here because they're wanting to serve Blue Oval. So there's always things that will come, and sometimes you have to turn on a dime. But you shouldn't always operate like that.
Right. So over 30 years in planning, how has your love for this grown? I mean, 30 years, it's a long time. Yeah. It really is. But I mean, you're still youthful. You're still moving around. You're still doing your thing. How has your love for planning grown over these 30 years, and why do you still love doing it?
Well, at the end of May, I celebrated my 35th anniversary with the city of Jackson, and looking back, what I tell people, they say, "You got 35 years. When are you going to retire?" I said, "I'm not ready. There's still a lot of great things that we need to accomplish as a city, and when I say I love the city of Jackson, that's not just a cliche. I do. I've invested my whole career, all of my working time, I've invested in trying to help make this city better.
I mean, your name, your hand, your voice, your choices, or not saying you made the decisions, but you come into the council for them to vote on things. Your name is on a lot of the past 30 years. There are kids who've been here who are 30 years old. This is a Stan Pilant country.
They work. I mean, I got kids that work. I call them kids because they're in their 20s. They work for me now, and I have to, I'll say something about something that happened in '93, and they'll go, "I wasn't born yet."
Right.
And so it's you get the perspective here that a lot of the things that you were a part of were long before they were ever thought of, and so, but I lived in Brownsville. Jackson was always the town you came to. We bought our school clothes here. We'd go to Sears. We'd go to the candy counter there, and that was always an adventure. And then I went to Union University here in Jackson, and so my love for Jackson is a long term love, and I truly do. When I say I love, I care, I appreciate, I really do. And so the reason why I stay is because we still got a lot to accomplish, and I want to be a part of that. And so as long as I am feeling like I'm productive, as long as I feel like I'm providing value, and that I'm helping accomplish and get us there, I'm going to continue to do it.
And I mean, that's dedication. And so you're the mayor always jokes when we do our years of service. You got 25 years. You got 25 more. You look like you can just continue on building this.
Lord
city.
willing, I hope I can. I hope I can go a little bit longer. I tell people that Jackson. I consider Jackson to be the Chattanooga of West Tennessee. And if you've been to Chattanooga, and I was there, and when I went to school, graduate school in '86, Chattanooga was awful. I mean, it looked like a Northeast Rust Belt town. There just wasn't a whole lot going on. But what Chattanooga did is, around that same time, they committed to what they called their Vision 2000 plan, and it was a plan that the community got behind, and they made decisions based on what that vision was. And in a short period of time, they turned that city around, and now they had, just like we do, great partners, Bob Corker and Volkswagen, and some things that happen that help that vision be accomplished, but they stay committed. And so now they're the poster child of how you do it right. And now a lot of people go there and they go, this is great. You know, I love being in Chattanooga. There's just so much to do. Well, it didn't just get there.
Right.
I mean, they had to invest. They had to improve the things that needed to be improved so that they could get there. And so I feel like we are in that same position. I feel right now Jackson is at a crossroads, and we have an opportunity to basically carry Jackson to the next level. But there's some things that we're going to have to address, and those are the things I want to be a part of because, you know, I always tell people Jackson is a sum of its parts. That's why we called our plan the One Jackson Plan, because Jackson is only as strong as its weakest area. So no area we can write off, no area.
Right.
We can't just concentrate on one area. We have to concentrate on all areas, bringing them up. And so when we plan for all the city. We don't plan for just parts of the city. And as we move forward and we improve the quality of life issues like the greenways and the trails, and providing the housing and all the things that people look for when they're looking for a community to be a part of, that's the things we want to put in place. We have a lot of the building blocks now. When you talk to people from the outside, and I like to, because we get to see a lot of people that come into Jackson for the first time because they come to the planning department, they want to know where things are. One of the things I ask them is, what brought you to Jackson? You know, because, you know, I'm just curious because a lot of times they're from as far away as California or somewhere like that. And they said, you know, we just, you know, we got introduced to it, and or we were heading to Nashville, or we were going through and passing through, and we stopped here for a meal at one time, and we just said, hey, this is, you know, a pretty neat place. But they always say the biggest thing that attracts us to Jackson is its hospitality, the friendliness of the people. They say the friendliness of the people has just overwhelmed us. And that small town feel, that hospitality, that positive, cordial attitude is what keeps people coming. And so even with all the growth and things that we've experienced, I feel like we still need to not lose those things, because I feel that so many communities, like I think about Murfreesboro, it just has exploded. But I wonder about the people that have lived there all their life. They've lost a lot of identity in the process because of all the development and all the traffic and all the things that, you know, you think, you know, that. So I've always been one, give me managed growth. Explosive growth no one can plan for. Give me managed growth, and give me time to put things in place and improve things, and we can form the building blocks that produce a community that everyone will enjoy and want to be a part of.
Yeah, you mentioned community. That's a big thing now. You say that when Chattanooga, the community got behind it. I've seen now, again, since I've moved here in 2010, I mean, I was brought here because of my job. I'm still here because of work and my love for Jackson. And to see and to feel the hospitality, I see what the people who are coming from California, from New York, or from wherever, they experience it because it's true.
It's true.
The people here, I mean, they'll stick their hand out for you for if you need help. There, all the nonprofits that we have, all the volunteer, all the money that's spent and shared around Jackson. Here, let me donate to you. Let me donate to you. Or, hey, they're donating to me. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. And those people who, you know, have grown up here, they haven't lost their identity. Jackson's identity, from an outsider, from me coming from Memphis, Jackson has not lost its identity.
I don't think so.
We are, you consider, you know, it was the big city for you, the Chattanooga of West Tennessee. I've always called it the capital of West Tennessee. Outside of Memphis, this is where everybody's coming. Jackson is the big city for the rural, and then when they get to Nashville, Memphis, it's just like a New York to them. So the planning that you've done here for the city, it's an amazing thing to see and to know. For me, working for the city now, knowing your position, knowing what more of what you do, I can see it. You know, back when I worked for the Sun, I saw here and there, but to be able to know your position now working for the city, to see all the things that you do, it's an amazing thing to see. So,
well, it's you know, Jackson, as I was growing up, was the place that everybody aspired to. You know, if somebody wanted to emulate a city that was doing the things right, it was Jackson. And that's one of the things that attracted me to Jackson was, you know, it was always something. They were always on the cutting edge. I mean, we built the Civic Center.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody was building those type of facilities when they built that in the 70s.
Especially in West Tennessee.
I mean, we were on the mall.
Mm.
I mean, we were one of the first places to really start a regional type mall, and so it was in the middle of nowhere, out there when they developed it. So we've always been on the cutting edge and been what everyone wanted to aspire to. Our educational system was top notch, and we went through a period while I've been here. The first, there was a lot of years that we just really didn't have the resources to do the things we wanted to do, and we lost a little bit of that during that time. But I think we still were trying to do the things. We built a city hall. We built a golf course. We had a baseball team in a stadium. All those things are cutting edge things that cities just don't go, okay, we just program that in. I mean, those are things you have to really get behind and really want to see them happen, or they're not successful. And so now with the current administration, we're starting to do the same things. Now, are they the same things that we did 20 years ago? No, but there's still things. But the arena, buying the Jackson Plaza property, the convention center, the hotels, the redevelopment of the mall area. The first question people ask me is that doable? And I said, yes, because it's not. This isn't a local facility.
Right.
This is going to be a regional facility that's going to address all of West Tennessee and probably parts of Memphis and Nashville that people will come to, and it will not be on the backs of the citizens of Jackson. It will be on the region to support and be a part of and to attract. And so to me, that's cutting edge, because I think of all the things that we do, like the city deciding, even though it went in the school business, it was going to get behind a new Madison.
Right.
We didn't have to do that. But we saw the benefits of doing that. We saw that having that as an anchor point in the Lambeth area was important, especially with the Lambeth University and then the University of Memphis coming on and trying to keep a stable force there to the neighborhoods that all depended on having an anchor point. They were important. So we've always been a part of that. And I think if we ever lose sort of that aspiration, that vision, that's when we'll start to stagnate and we'll start losing ground that so many other cities that we think about. At one time they had the glitter but they lost it somehow. And because you never sit still, you're either moving forward or you're going backwards. And so those are the things we always look for, is what's the things that we can do to not just do the normal things. Everybody fills potholes, and it's important. Don't get me wrong.
No, it's
everybody needs their garbage picked up.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. But there are other things that a city has to do. If they really want to be a community that people want to be a part of, they have to do those things.
And planning, that's what we have to do. Plan for the future, forward looking, like you said. And when it comes to city planning, I know whenever we have, for what I've learned from it, and the key that I give when we have students come to tour City Hall, when we pass by the planning department on the second floor, I tell them, hey, this is the planning department. And essentially, here's what the planning department does. They make sure that this big box retail store doesn't go in your neighborhood, or you don't build a house where the old Chili's is right at Walmart. We plan to make sure that everything is where it needs to be or where it can be, but also we're not in the business of building these things up. There are a lot of people who come or post on social media or say to me, "Oh, the city needs to build this. The city needs this. Why isn't the city building?" Or the city is building all these banks. The city's building all these hotels. Coming into working for the city now, I realize I knew this, but now more I can say it with more gravitas. The city's not building banks. The city's not building hotels. This is private development, but we have a planning department to make sure that they are where they need to be. Like a hotel is not about to be on the end of a cove in a neighborhood. So
being a part of redevelopment,
yeah,
there are things that government is strong when they do those things. There's things that government, when they try to do things that are not natural for government, sometimes they don't always do it as well. Government's not a developer.
Say that again.
Governments are not a developer. And usually when governments try to be a developer, it usually doesn't work that well. But what we do is we create environments conducive for development. So our best natural role as a city is to make the infrastructure, to make the environment conducive for development to come here and be successful. And a lot of times commercial development, it's like a chicken and egg. They want to see rooftops. And the rooftops want to see development that they can go and shop and get the things they need for life. And so those are the things that we do. And in redevelopment, that's what we've done. We enable development to happen. And so when I say that we are successful as a city because we have great partners, that's so true. If we didn't have developers here investing their private money in Jackson and building things here, then we wouldn't have development.
And for example, Columns 3, that's a whole new development coming. I mean, there are plenty in the city. I just think of that because I got here. Well, let me go back. I went to Tennessee State University for college. So between 2004 and 2008, all I knew was, didn't know Van Drive, but I knew Walmart, I knew Best Buy, I knew, it wasn't there at the time, but the building was the Buffalo Wild Wings, of course, Walmart, Ballpark. That was part of the Columns. I knew what the Columns was because we would pull off to eat right there. But then the Columns 2 came. And that's development. And then the Columns 3, and you have people who are, upset. And you mentioned rooftops, and we'll get to that. People who are upset. Well, the city's always building up north. The city, it bothers me sometimes when people say that, and I have to explain it to them. The city's always building stuff up north. Why isn't the city thinking about East Jackson? Why isn't the city thinking about South Jackson? Explain to us what it is that the city is. Why the city, of course, doesn't do it, but what it is that developers, why they're not looking at south or east. Although we are, like you said, Jackson, we're making it available for these developers, but the developers, they're looking at certain things.
Well, developers invest their money where they can get the best return. I mean, that's economics 101. So what motivates a developer in investing is what we refer to as critical mass, which is you have commercial development already started, where you have like Van Drive on the east side of the bypass and Van Drive on the west side. The more things you have, the more people that are attracted to that area, and the more potential you have for our customers to come into your business. So in other areas like south and east, it's a little bit more difficult because you don't have these large, commercial type areas. You do in South Jackson to some extent, but it was developed in an earlier time, and so it's sort of undergoing some redevelopment now. You're starting to see some new things come in, but developers look at a lot of factors. I mean, there's formulas that developers use, and part of that is, the incomes of the people that live around there, the amount of disposable income they have. All those things play into where a developer invests their money, and people think that we can tell them, okay, we want you to go here, and I had someone tell me, they said, why did you put the Target out north? Why didn't you put it in East Jackson?
Why did you specifically
and it was like, well, I don't tell a developer where to place a Target. They choose where they want to go and where they think they can have the best chance of success. And so can we make areas conducive for development? We can. But in the end, developers have to make that decision. And what we found is if I build a building out north, it's going to cost me the same, taking land out of the equation, but just the cost of building a building, it's going to cost me about the same it's going to cost me to build that same building south. But historically, appraisal values south were about 15% below where they were out north. And the disposable incomes of the people out south were lower than the disposable incomes out north. Now, that's not any knock on the residents of South Jackson. That's just the data that they feed into this formula to make it that you've got this person that they've employed to be a site locator, and they use a formula and they plug all these numbers in, and then they come out the other side and they say, okay, either you meet that formula or you don't. And that's no reflection on the area, East Jackson. In the end, all money is green. It's the same. And what experts will tell you is that some of that is really insignificant in the scheme of things, because people that have lesser incomes tend to spend more in disposable incomes than they do in other things. So it's all relative. But the key is that to provide the essential services wherever you can for whatever area you're trying to. And so, while Jackson is the sum of its parts, each geographic area has different personalities and different assets and so they're a little bit different. You don't have one size fits all, but you can do some of the same things. You just have to be more customizable to what the land that's available and the people that you're trying to serve.
And and I just keep thinking of this. It's like if somebody who lives in Atlanta is like, hey, we want a Target, there's no space to put a Target in Atlanta.
No.
So it's all about, like I said, development and the land. I mean, if there's no land for this place to go, the developers can't put it, but it's not necessarily the city saying, oh, you can't build there. Or, I mean, we'll get into that, but there are certain, letter codes, RS1, OC, all those letters, and we'll get into that. But we're not telling them, okay, you need to put that bank here, or you need to put that restaurant here, you need to put, that car wash here. There are people who, I've seen social media, there are people upset that there's a car wash plan for the little curve. I think it's the Lowe's parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
There are people upset about, why is there another car wash? All these car washes. Why is the city's not doing that. The city's not building these. Developers are saying, we want to put a car wash there. We want to put a bank there.
Well, these car washes wouldn't put these places in if they didn't think they were going to make them money.
Because there are a lot of cars that go that way.
We've changed our, the way we do things in our own lives, because we're more stretched and thinner than we used to be, and there's so many things to touch. But I used to wash my car. I'd wash it myself, but now people, they don't have time to devote. Saturdays are days to do the things you can't get done through Monday and Friday. Right. And so you don't want to take up your Saturday having to clean a vehicle, so they just run it through the car wash. So it, businesses adapt to the differing characteristics of customers as they change over time. So it's just a function of, we don't do. That's why you got oil change places. I used to change my own oil, but I don't do that anymore because I got other things I'm having to do. So it's again, I know that people have a desire to see things in their community, and it's about convenience, and people want it convenient to them. But I had a transportation engineer come to Jackson one time, and they were looking at our infrastructure, and they said, I said, well, we got people that say we have traffic problems, and they just kind of laughed, and they said, you mean Jackson's rush minute? It's, when you think about that, we can be anywhere in Jackson.
Oh, I give it 50. I tell my mom, she asks, how far is it from, this hotel to this? It's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Everything to me is 15 minutes in Jackson.
And for the most part, it is. I mean, and so while you might not have a Target in East Jackson, you have a Target available to East Jackson within a short drive. And they're not battling traffic like Nashville, where you're battling traffic for an hour and a half to get somewhere.
They can hop on 70, hop on the interstate, hop on bypass.
Yeah, they can be there. And so the things that you want to do is, again, looking at Jackson as one Jackson, a community. You look at the things that our community offers, and while we can't have everything convenient to everyone, it's still within a short drive.
Right.
You can have anything pretty much you want.
So city council, you're probably at the table more than any other department because people are wanting rezoning. The rezoning process, there are a lot of letters, numbers, RS, OC. Real briefly, explain what those are and why we need those and how they can change.
Okay. You mentioned the letters like RS1 and OC, and they're just acronyms, abbreviations for the zoning classes that they represent. Like RS1 is single family residential, and we have RS1, we have RS. And in most of them, the single family districts are separated by lot sizes. It's just one allows has a minimum lot size that's bigger than, say, another one. But then you have office classes that usually have O's in the abbreviation, then industrial I's. But it's just a way of looking at the city, and a part of that master plan that we talked about was looking at future land use and identifying where things should be commercial, where things should be industrial, and where things should be residential. And that's sort of the building blocks of planning that started way back in the early 1900s, started with the segregation of uses based on impact. They used to have industrial plants sitting right next to a single family home, and in the day, the shadow of the plant would just engulf the house. And so you started looking at, okay, some things need to be separated because of the impacts they have. And so that led to land use and separating things by land use. And so, now we're starting to see a trend that's a little bit different as things become more mixed use. It's not so much that something be just residential or just industrial or just office. Sometimes you look at more mixed use where you can have residential and commercial and some and office and all in the same area. And that's because as you interview people, the things they look at is, what does it look like? It's not so much how is that building used, but what does it look like? And so as you start doing mixed use things, you can have buildings be occupied by differing uses, and they all coexist and they're fine.
So, like for instance, in Memphis, I was just I go to church in Memphis. On Highland Avenue, there's the mixed use. You got your residential on top, and you got your restaurants or retail at the bottom. Will that at some point? I mean, downtown kind of has that, but it's not like the condo apartment style where there are multi-families in these structures. Will Jackson have that at some point?
I think as we move toward trying to find more affordable options for people in terms of housing, you're going to have to look at these creative ways. To do housing, because if you build a single-family home, that price per square foot is going to be the same if you build a big one or a small one. It's just that you multiply the square foot by the amount it costs to build plus the land cost, and that gives you a value. So when you try to do a house below $300,000, an average home, say 1,700 square feet or so, it's very difficult because the price per square foot's the price per square foot. It's what those materials cost, and you got to have some profitability built in there, and you got land cost and land preparation and infrastructure, and all that plays into it. So as we move forward, we're going to have to look at ways to find more affordable options. That's why we amended our zoning to allow residential and shopping center districts, because as retail changes, we've seen a change in retail where big box stores are starting to get smaller, and more businesses are now going to an online presence only and no brick and mortar. Well, as these buildings change and retail leaves them, you've got to now utilize them in some way. Residential seems to be the best readapt of a commercial building, because you can produce a number of units relatively not as expensive as it would building a brand new construction. So and you got these huge parking lots. You got to do something with them.
I was going to bring that up. Parking lot minimums. We're one of the first cities to kind of get rid of it. There are a lot of parking spaces, and nowadays you rarely see people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces, and then there are 30 more going up to the edge of the road or wherever it stops. We'll talk about that more probably at a point where you come back on, especially when we see in Jackson all these buildings or these developers deciding, okay, let's go ahead and try this out. And that brings me to my next thing. You've been recently promoted to the Director of Planning, Growth, and Development, which still includes the planning department, building department. To you, what is the importance of growth and development? 30 years, your name is a part of the growth and development of Jackson. What's the importance of it to you for a city like Jackson?
Well, the planning, the building, the engineering departments all are part of what we call development services. They're all a part of somebody building or developing a piece of property. For years, we were all sort of separated, and we all had pieces of the process. Engineering did what they do, building did what they did, and we did what we do. There was a lack of opportunities for looking at the process as a whole, from say 10,000 feet above, and see what we could to make it more efficient. And because you had these individual properties under each individual direction, you didn't have the ability to really influence that, because you had to stay at your lane, and they had to stay in their lane, and But now the line is just gone. Now the building, engineering, and planning department, we operate as the planning, growth, and development, we operate as a team that we can move personnel back and forth across the line. I've got a young guy in my office that's helping the building department do some things they do, and they assist us to do some things we do, and it basically multiplies people. If you can when you delegate something, and you're able to delegate it to more people, and you got depth in your chart, as they say in sports, then you've got a lot of ability to do a lot more things, and the burden becomes lighter for everybody if you can do that. And plus we had expertise in the planning side of things that maybe the building department didn't have access to, like the mapping and geographic stuff, and engineering had things that they did and expertise that helped us in planning and doing the things we do. So we've made some changes, since we started this back in August of 23, that have made the process more efficient.
And when someone comes in, they're either wanting to build, any building that goes up, they have to stop at least 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
But all 3 of you work together in making sure, for engineering, got to make sure stormwater and just that's taken care of. The building, got to make sure that the building will stand, and planning, make sure that this building is in where it needs to be. So coming together, having y'all separated, it was the idea of bringing y'all together. I think it was a really good idea.
Well, it's also when we have issues, like 311 created a mechanism where people could react to issues that they saw and immediately send them to our attention, and we put a lot of effort into those 311 reports. But very rarely do you find issues that are just one-sided, where you've got it's just a building thing, or it's an engineering thing, or it's a planning thing. What we kept running into is a lot of times we were having to collectively deal with an issue, and so now we're just organized in a way that we can do that instead of the way it was before, where we did it, but it wasn't as seamless as it is now. So I think it's produced a lot of benefit.
Well, Stan, looking forward, or rephrase, forward looking, that's planning in a nutshell for the city. And again, 35 years of your, it's beyond me to think about. But they always say, when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That's right.
And working with you, seeing your love for what you do, it doesn't seem like work to you. But you are working, but it doesn't seem like work to you.
I enjoy it, and when I say I enjoy it, I really do.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful thing for anybody, any profession. If you enjoy it, if you have a passion for it, there's a difference to me, passion and love. You have a passion for it, you'll do it, and you love doing it. And I can only imagine when you see the growth. Like, for instance, Jackson Walk, when you see where it was, like I did when I got here in 2010, nothing, and see where it is now, and to know that you had your hand in it. And like for me, seeing where communication was with the city and to have my hand in it, to change the game in it, it's an amazing thing to know that you are Stan the man with the plan, planning. All those rhymes. Stan, thank you for coming on to Eastman 101. I appreciate it. We can go on and on about Pilant. At some point, we'll have you on again, and we'll go in more specifics about maybe one specific topic or two specific topics.
Sounds good.
Again, thank you for coming on. So, as you all know, it's lessons. It's pop quiz time. I've got 3 questions for Stan. And Stan, the pop quiz is just 3 questions about my guest. It's nothing that you won't know. It's just questions basically for you, not multiple choice, whatever's on your head. So, the first pop quiz question is, I know that you are a musician. What is your instrument of choice, and what are some of your favorite songs to play?
Well, piano's my instrument of choice. It's the instrument that I learned when I started in the 5th grade. I played all through school and until I graduated, and then I went to Union. I played some in some bands and different things, but then I picked up the guitar later, so a guitar is a little bit more portable than a piano is. So I learned that, and I enjoy that, and I play that a lot too. But the music, I was a praise and worship leader for 30 plus years. So most of my music and playing revolved around church music.
Okay.
Now now we have worship leaders and things like that, and I still participate. I don't have to lead on a regular basis, and I don't lead. I don't play all the time, but that's pretty much where I concentrate most of my playing is playing along with praise and worship.
Okay. So started on the piano and guitar. Like I said, I've seen your guitar in your office, and that's awesome. Pop quiz question number 2. In the city of Jackson, as a planner, what project in the city are you most proud to be a part of? 35 years, it's not a tough question. You got all this city of Jackson that's grown in those 35 years. Give me your one project that you are most proud of in the city.
I would have to say, and you mentioned it, Jackson Walk, and not that I haven't been a part of a lot of great projects, but Jackson Walk was unique in that it was the first time that I was able to take a slate and start with a clean slate.
And when you say clean slate, it was absolutely nothing there. And like I said, 2010, I got here. Maybe there was one building, just a creek that just looked bad.
It was where the old street department building was, and then Morgan and Wells Alley and all that area was a very dilapidated area, and so we got the ability to start at a clean slate and say, what can we put in place to bring this area back? And so I've been really pleased because people thought we were crazy. I mean, when we mentioned this, people thought we were crazy. I remember when we built the first house on Morgan, we were selling it for $125,000, and that was like in it had been in after 2010.
Let's just say I should have bought it then.
Yeah, we were afraid we wouldn't get it. And so things have changed, and we've had a lot of success there. And so what that does is it motivates me to want to see that model carried out in East Jackson, in the Oman Arena area, in the Lane College extended down the lane. I feel like we've got some of the same building blocks. So we're looking for that next project where we're not working within the existing fabric, where we have the ability to start again and improve things to a critical mass that we see the benefits spread in other areas.
So Jackson Walk, that's kind of it's residential. It's also with the Lift Wellness Center. There are a few retail shops. I think the next residential may be coming, but I think one of the next big ones is the Old Hickory Mall area, yes. Old Service Merchandise. Lord willing, you're here because as a planner, you know what you're doing. I'm hoping that these developers come through and we look at this, and I think that'll probably be your next big one. That's going to be and we'll get into that at another point when you come on.
It's exciting.
All of it's exciting. Just from the outside, for me looking in, and for others who, love to see the growth of the city, I know it's an exciting thing, and I know for you, because your hand is in it, to help make, not necessarily tell people where to put stuff, but help make the decisions to make it conducive to where these developers can put things there. That's awesome. So pop quiz question number 3, it's kind of a personal one. Yep. I'm about to be a dad soon. I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be a girl. What is your one best piece of dad advice for me and for anyone who's about to be a first-time dad?
I raised 2 girls, so I've got some experience in what you're going to be facing, and the biggest thing, the one thing that I think is most important for a dad, just be present.
I love it.
Be present, because there's a special relationship between daughters and fathers. Mm-hmm. Mothers and daughters sometimes butt heads, but there's a special relationship that fathers have with daughters, and being present, and whether it be daughters or sons, just loving them no matter what, because there's no manual. Right. There's no handbook that comes with them. You're going to make mistakes. They're going to come out all right, but just being present for them and loving them and being there for them, that's the best advice I can give.
So you can't plan for how to raise, because like you said, there's no manual, but you can plan a whole city.
They're gonna the things that you want for them. Mm-hmm. I wanted my girls to play the piano like I played the piano. They both tried it, and it wasn't really for them. But I had to learn that they were their own people. Yeah. They were their own person. So my oldest daughter has a great singing voice. Vocally, she's great. My youngest daughter has talents too, but she's like her mom. She doesn't really prefer to be out in front. Mm. She'd rather be in the background helping and assisting, and that's important too. So they're both very talented, and they're going to go their own way, and that's okay.
They can look back and say, my dad was there, and where they're going, they can just be proud of their dad. That's what I want. Listen, when people ask me, "Are you excited?" I'm so excited. I want to be there. I tell my wife all the time, if baby girl wants to color, if she has a coloring book when she gets old enough and wants to color on the floor, she said, "Daddy, can you come color me?" I want to color with you. I want to be there. So that's be present. That's really good advice. It's some of the best advice I've gotten since letting people know that about to happen.
And I'll end with this. When I first started working for the city, one of the first things they had me do was color maps. And so at the time, it was the best way you could learn the city, because you were coloring lots and looking at streets. And so I remember thinking to myself, I'll be glad when the day comes that I can do something really important. This is just menial, this just doesn't mean anything. And they would joke, they would say, you didn't know when you were in kindergarten that you'd be learning a skill that you'd use in later life. And so but I, some days now I'd be glad to go back and just color
Just
land
color
use
in the
maps,
maps.
but we do it different ways now. But
That's awesome.
it's all right.
Well, Stan, the man in planning, thank you for being on. I appreciate you. As you all know, this is East Maine 101. It's education, so there is homework. Visit our website, jacksontn.gov. Check out the planning department. Just look over it, read over it, see if there are any documents that you want to read about, why we do the way we do. Check out some of those acronyms like RS1, OC1, industrial, all those. I'm still learning myself. And when Stan goes to city council and he mentions it, like I said, I'm still learning. So I want you all to check that out as well. JacksonTN.gov, under the government tab, click the planning department. Stan, thanks again for being here. I appreciate you. That does it for East Maine 101 Lesson 12 with Stan Pilant, Director of Planning, Growth, and Development. Be sure, again, to follow us on all of our social media pages. Subscribe to us on our YouTube and Spotify channels by visiting eastmain101.jacksontn.gov. Again, visit our website, jacksontn.gov, Planning Department, for your homework. And thank you all, again, for coming in to East Maine 101 Lesson 12. Until next week, class dismissed.